love vintage calculators, and this here is an awesome one. Really happy I got my hands on this. This is a Heathkit model 2008A. This here is a calculator from 1972 that was sold by Heathkit as a kit, and it was put together by, well, some intrepid person way back in the early 1970s. Now, I think this is a really cool calculator. It's highly collectible, and why it's collectible is because it has an unusual display. Not only is this a Panaplex type display, which is a relative of a Nixie tubes, this display uses Sperry units, Sperry brand, and in these Sperry units, the 7 segments are connected to each other. They're not broken with little breaks in between them. And I think that gives this calculator a really cool aesthetic. And in addition to that, the aesthetic is really standard late 1960s, even though it was made in 1972. Late 1960s computational aesthetics. Take, for example, here's a Wang 300 series calculator. You can see a little bit of a resemblance. That aesthetic made it into a lot of Star Trek, the original series episodes as well. Anyways, let us dive in and give this here a little bit of a reconditioning. It's rather dirty. There's pen marks and smudges all over the place. And some of the keys are a little bit sticky. Maybe we can fix that up. Another problem that we're going to deal with is I was lucky this time here in that this bank of digits actually turned on for this video. Usually this bank of digits, it doesn't turn on for like a good 15-20 minutes. So I think that might be a power supply issue. So we'll look at the power supply and see if we can figure that out. Anyways, let's get at it. 4 screws can be found on the bottom holding it together. The ones in the front are a little bit longer than the ones in the back. One thing I always check is whether they're magnetic or not, and they're weakly magnetic, suggesting that these screws are stainless steel. Yeah, Heathkit was well known for using high quality components. Their kits were really top notch. Let's take the top off and get our first look at the insides. Now here's the inside of the top case, and let us remove this display window. It's held in with some brass clips that are just screwed into the casework. Those screws are quite magnetic, and I'm not sure whether you can see it in the camera, but they're quite white and dusty looking. That's white rust. It's not actually iron rust. That's the zinc-plated coating has corroded over all these many years. Not sure whether that's just time or whether it's possibly storage conditions. Might be a little bit of both. In damp conditions, zinc can corrode. Here's a close-up of one of the brass clips and screws, and we can see like corrosion on both of them. A little bit of green on that brass clip, that is corroding copper. And on the screw, it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's white powdery residue. That is white rust or zinc hydroxide. I'm going to use some ballistol on this rag for cleaning off the corrosion. Ballistol is this product from Germany that's developed for cleaning firearms. However, it has lots of uses around the tool shop for cleaning tools, lubrication, and it'll leave a thin film behind to help prevent further corrosion. Check this out. When the calculator was together, I noted that the display window was kind of funky. It's like dappled and blurry. Well, it turns out that whoever put this calculator together forgot to take the protective film off. It might take a little bit of work, but let me pull this off. Oh no, it's going to come off. Wow, look at that. It's going to come off in one sheet and reveal a virtually brand new display window. Ain't that awesome? Now let's look at the upper case, and I am quite happy that it shows minimal, if any, yellowing whatsoever. Compare the inside to the outside, and yeah, that's good. I'm not going to need to give it any sort of an peroxide type of treatment. Now, let me see if I can get the angles with the camera right. There are definitely scuff marks. You can see some there, pen marks there. dirt marks. Right over there you can see some. Camera's not picking it up very well, but it is a little bit on the dirty side. Here at the back we can see water spots. That might be somehow associated with the corrosion on those screws that we saw. Anyways, to clean a case like this, once it's all taken apart, you have a couple options. You can take it to your kitchen sink and use a toothbrush and warm water and dish soap. But down here in my shop, I don't have a sink available. So what I prefer to do is use two different solvents, universal solvents. First of all, distilled water. Now, dirt. You're going to have two different types of dirt. You're going to have water-soluble dirt, and you're going to have oil-soluble dirt. Now, water got rid of that stain there, got rid of all the water marks on the back, and a substantial amount of the dirt, but what it didn't get are what I believe are some pen marks there, and some other marks there. Now, water is going to dissolve away any sort of hydrophilic substances, and then for things like ink and greasy deposits, you need some sort of a solvent, and the safest solvent to use is mineral spirits. Alcohol, acetone, those are strong solvents and they can be harmful to plastics, but mineral spirits are largely harmless to a majority of finishes. Yet the mineral spirits will dissolve away ink and, well, a lot of greasy stains. Let me work on this and I'll bring you back. The top came out squeaky clean. All of the marks are now gone. Looks beautiful. There's no scratches. I'm really quite happy. Let's turn our attentions now to the bottom. I'm going to start just with taking all of these keys off. I'm going to give them a similar treatment of water and then mineral spirits and get them good and clean. Got the keycaps all cleaned. They are really high quality keycaps made out of both black and white plastic that are molded together. Those numbers are not just screened on. No matter how much you use these keys, those numbers are never going to wear off. Pretty cool. Took the electronics out and I've given the bottom casework a similar treatment of a distilled water and then some mineral spirits, and looks to be in excellent condition. All the posts are intact. There's no cracks or anything. Back is good. Even the rubber feet are stuck on there. What I'm going to attempt to do now is to gently pull back this Scotch tape off of this label, and maybe we can fix that on a little bit nicer. I got the label removed and the bottom nice and cleaned up. I've applied some 3M 467 peel and stick adhesive. I already dog-eared the corner. Be careful to not touch the surface because it is really like fly paper sticky. Oh, there we go. Make sure I get that in the right orientation. Avoid that little injection molding mark. And that seems about good like so. Now, just need some good pressure, and I'll be stuck on there for another quite a few decades. Peel and stick adhesive, apparently that's what they use for applying those labels that go on the gas pump for telling you what octane of gas you're buying. So it is pretty strong stuff. Now, before we do anything with this board, let's make certain that that high voltage capacitor has no residual charge on it. It's a CAN capacitor with actually two capacitors inside one container, and that's one of them there is not reading anything. And that's the other one. They have a common negative lead. Okay, at least the board is discharged, so now we can proceed to have a look-see at its condition. And let's just have a look. See, there's no conformal coating, there's no solder mask, old school, and it looks to be in pretty good condition. These screws here have a little bit of white rust on them, not too bad, And is that there? What is that? That's just a bit of rosin. Yeah, that's not rust. Yeah, the board looks to be in remarkably good condition. A bit of dust around the keypad, as would be expected. Some lovely key switches. Let me see if I can get a better focus here. And maybe we can see the mechanism inside. You see there are two leaves there, and the contact is just above my fingernail. And when this post is right there, when this post is pushed down, there is a little bit of a plastic wedge there, and that wedge is causing those two contacts to meet and complete the circuit. So anyways, the first thing that I'd like to do is just give it a good blowing, not a big deal, and then I am going to use some electronics contact cleaner to hopefully improve the action of these switches. Now, in order to lubricate the switches, you might reach for your can of WD-40, and that would work in a pinch. However, WD-40 is not optimal because WD-40, it is lightweight, volatile hydrocarbons that evaporate away, but also there are hydrocarbons that stay behind and leave a film. That film is a lubricating film, rust protecting film. You might think that's good, but in the long run, WD-40, that film, it turns gunky over time. It attracts a lint. It is problematic. Much better is to use a proper electronics cleaner or contact cleaner. This here is marine variety. It was just cheaper when I bought it. Basically, all this is WD-40, but without any of the residuals that'll stay behind. Now, I looked at these key switches and did a couple test runs before I started filming, and what I have found is that they are fairly sealed, except right there where the post goes into the switch. And I observed carefully from the side that if I sort of push this post to the side, let me do it over here, get that one set up, push the post to the side, give it a blast, and that does seem to get some of the contact cleaner into the switch mechanism. Now, I'm not too worried about corrosion on the contact tips because these keys are working fine. Just as some of the keys are a little bit stickier than other ones, not sure why that is, but maybe there's a little bit of schmoo in there or something like that, and hopefully this contact cleaner can displace it and make the keys operate a little bit better. Now, let's see if we can get this display unit to work properly. This unit right here, the third one, at the start of this video it turned on, luckily, but sometimes it doesn't turn on, like even for an hour or more. Now, long before I shot this video, I had the schematic available for the calculator, and I do believe there's a problem with the power supply, with the high voltage side of the power supply. A schematic, you can find that on the website Datamath Calculator Museum. Fantastic treasure trove of information, lots of information even on this model precisely. The Old Calculator Museum, another great website, highly recommended. Anyways, let's take a look at these capacitors. Here is a big electrolytic capacitor on the low voltage side. This is a CAN capacitor on the high voltage side. There's no other electrolytics on this board, and electrolytic capacitors are typically the ones that are going to go bad on vintage electronics. Here's a 0.68 microfarad, not an electrolytic, but a good sized capacitor there. Anyways, let us test whether these capacitors are actually functioning to spec. Now, to test the functioning of capacitors, the equipment that you want is an ESR meter, equivalent series resistance. These meters, they can measure capacitance in microfarads, but also the equivalent series resistance will tell you how well the capacitor is actually operating. These ESR meters, you can even measure very often, not always, but very often, you can measure whether the capacitor is working properly without even taking it out of the circuit. Now, this here is a Peak model out of England. You can find them fairly cheap on Fleabay, Chinesium models, and they're reasonably functional. They might not be perfectly accurate, but it's definitely good as a go, no-go test. So let's start by testing the capacitance, the capacitor on the low voltage side. And that one looks good, 1500, almost 1600 microfarads, and low ESR is what it should be. Now let's test the capacitor, the high voltage capacitor. It's CAN capacitor. It actually has two different capacitors in one package. Try that again. In circuit leaky. Okay, that says it's in circuit and that the meter's having trouble with it. ESR is reasonably, well, not that low, but it's reasonably low anyways. CAN capacitor has a second capacitor. Check that one out. Also says that it's leaky or in circuit. That's just for fun. Check out that other capacitor, not an electrolytic, but see if this meter can handle it. And look at that, the capacitance is exactly on its nominal value. The ESR is really nice and low. This capacitor is perfectly good, as would be expected because it's not electrolytic. Anyways, let me hot up the soldering iron and take this CAN capacitor out and test it out of the circuit and just double verify that this is actually problematic. Out of circuit, this vintage capacitor actually reads reasonably well. 20 microfarads nominal, I got 25 here. Low ESR, and it gets similar on both banks. Nonetheless, I'm going to replace this vintage capacitor because these old capacitors, the dielectric begins to break down and it might have leakage current. Maybe that's the reason why this calculator is having a little bit of trouble. I have some modern replacements. Amazing the size difference. The negatives are common, and well, let's get this here installed. Okay, clean the tip. Give the solder a little bit of don't give a flux. And a little bit of solder there. That's good. And that's good. And there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that this display unit is now reliably turning on every time I flip the calculator on. The bad news is that digit number 6 is not lighting up. Most everything else seems to work, however. Let's enter a few numbers. 4, 5. The 6 key is dead. 7, 8, 9. They seem to work just fine. Everything else seems to be fine on this calculator. Now, a review of the schematic has revealed that these pins, most of these pins on this side of the calculator chip, are known as digit drivers. Digit drivers do multiple functions. They pulse, and when they pulse, they pull the key switches. So there is a pin there for key switch. Key switch, that pin, also drives this digit, the 6th digit, when the display is being multiplexed. It also pulls position 6 on the decimal selector rotary switch. So let us test some voltages on these pins and see if we can diagnose for certain what the problem is. Okay, let's pull some voltages off of these display driver pins. Not sure what they're supposed to be, but let's check out a good pin. I'm not sure which one that is. Maybe it's pin number 6 or pin 7. And that would be, I guess, a normal voltage off of it. 500 and some odd millivolts. Now let's move to the next pin. Okay. That there is pin 8. That is display driver number 6, and we are reading a low voltage there, so something is wrong. Now, I've noticed that if I accidentally touch the two pins together, I get that 6th digit to turn on. Now, what that tells me is that the display driver transistors that are just out of view underneath the circuit board, that they're functioning fine. The problem got to be with the chip. So I pulled the chip and I straightened out pin number 7 and pin number 8. Pin 7 is digit driver 5, and pin 8 is digit driver number 6. Now I got my oscilloscope hooked up, and let's see what pin number 7 looks like. See if I can touch it using this camera. There we go. So there's pin number 7, and those pulses that you can see there are it while driving the display, or attempting to, it's not connected, or polling key number 5. Now let's move over to pin 8. I'll lower the trigger level a little bit. It still seems that we're getting those irregular pulses, but the voltage is way off. So something unusual has gone on in this chip. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I had a little bit of solder on the table, possibly, like that shorted something out. Maybe with static electricity. I've been kind of cavalier and I haven't grounded myself. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's just an unusual failure mode of this chip. Because interestingly, this CAN capacitor did check out fine, and maybe the problem with this bank of digits lighting or refusing to light up wasn't actually to do with the power supply, but was actually something going on in that chip, and the straw finally broke and the camel's back fell, and the weird failure mode is that turned on, and that one's no longer working, digit number 6, possibly. Anyways, highly annoying. I'm going to have to shelve this video for a little while I hunt down a replacement IC, and, well, I'll get back to it then. Bye for now. And in the blink of an eye, 3 weeks have passed. My wallet's a lot lighter, but at least we have a new old stock Texas Instruments TMS 0101NC calculator on a chip to replace this one that's gone bad. Now, before we stick this chip into the calculator, let us run a few more tests just to make sure that there's no external circuitry problem that actually caused this chip to go bad in the first place. Now, let's start off by testing the positive and negative DC sources to this calculator on a chip. Negative is on pin 15. And it should read negative 7.5 volts. It says almost 7.4. That is well within spec. And then pin 28, that should be positive 7.5 volts. Looks not too bad. Now let's check ripple. We can do that just by setting it to RMS. It's not going to be a perfect measurement, but as long as it is under the 10 millivolt range, it's not too bad whatsoever. Check this one here as well. And yeah, it's under 10 millivolts. So the power supply to the chip is fine. Next, I removed the old chip and the power is on. Let us check pins 3 through 14. Those are the digit drivers 1 through 11. And let's just make sure that there's no stray voltages that could be causing a problem for the chip. So there's digit driver line number 1, line number 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. 6 is the one that was having troubles on the chip, but it seems fine, so no stray voltages there. 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Yeah, all looks good. Unplugged, strapped in, and ready to go. This reminds me of that time my son was chewing electrical cords. Yeah, I had to ground him until he conducted himself properly. Apologies, I had to do that off a camera. I need to get my face right down in there and make sure that all the pins were going in nice and straight and evenly. Moment of truth. It is plugged in, and let's see if it works. Woohoo, it seems to work. All the banks are lighting up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Clear, 9, 8, 7. Add 1, 2, 3 equals. Yeehaw, it works. Now let's get this recased and check it out. Back together, and it is glorious. I love this vintage machine. Display now works a lot better than it did before. Let's do some practice calculations. 355 divided by 113 gives a pretty darn good approximation for pi. This machine uses what they called at the time algebraic logic, which basically just means that it calculates the things by the order of keystrokes that you enter. So for instance, 1 plus 2 times 3, it gives us 9. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a very simple machine. It has a couple unusual features that were in calculators from the very early 1970s. For instance, it has a wheel here for rounding the number of digits displayed. Except it's not actually rounding, it's only truncating the number. So let's say you do 2 divided by 3. Well, that should be 0.66668, which would round to 0.7 with a single digit of precision, but that just rounds it down. It just truncates all the digits thereafter. So I'm not sure how useful that really is. F isn't for floating, going to just use that normally. It has a separate sign button, which is unusual. Most calculators just used the negative symbol. And like a lot of calculators from the 1970s, it has this constant function. You hold that button down and now you can multiply or divide a whole bunch of numbers by a constant. Let's say 5%. So you can enter 0.05 and then multiply that by some number. Let's say 100. 5% of 100 is 5. 5% of 120 gives us 6. Of 300, well, that gives us 15. It works for division as well. Let's say you want to divide a whole bunch of numbers by, let's say, divided by 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 120 divided by 10 is 12. 300 by 10 is 30, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, a simple machine, but I like it because it has a fantastic keypad. Keys are working a little bit better than they were before. A little bit loosened up. This one here was sticky. Seems a lot better now. Anyways, thanks for staying through this look at a vintage piece of Heathkit. I hope you found it interesting. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. And the video is not quite over yet. A couple days have passed, and I had taken this calculator upstairs, and I was using it in the living room, and once again, the display was slow to light, and that leftmost bank of 3 digits, it wasn't lighting up, and it'd take like minutes before it would light up. That really had me scratching my head. I was really disappointed. I thought that I had the calculator fixed and it was all working properly. So I brought it back down to my shop, and I didn't even have to take it apart. I just flipped the switch and boom! The display turns on like no problem. I had to do a little bit of research to figure out what was going on, and that's why I'm recording this here in the dark. Let me demonstrate. I turn it on, and there is one bank of digits that lights up. And that bank should light up soon enough. It might take a little while. Like I said, it can take a while. What's going on? It's a dark environment. In a dark environment, there's no photons, just ambient light photons going around to ionize the neon gas inside these displays. Some gas needs to be ionized for the striking voltage to actually start the gas discharge and get that beautiful orange glow. So, there's the second bank. Now let us get that third bank going with the flashlight. Aim it there. Boom. Go figure.